Last time we left on an uncomfortable question. The Federal Reserve fights inflation by making borrowing expensive enough to cool the whole economy. And that raised a worry. Could the cure go too far? Could it tip the economy into a recession? To answer that, we first have to know what a recession actually is. And most of us have been handed the wrong definition. Here's the one you've probably heard. A recession is 2 straight quarters of shrinking output, 2 quarters of falling GDP. It's clean, it's quotable, and it isn't the official rule. It's a rule of thumb. In fact, the very agency that measures GDP says it doesn't declare recessions at all. And the rule of thumb can miss. The 2001 recession never had 2 consecutive quarters of falling output. By that test, it wouldn't count, yet everyone agrees it happened. So what's the real definition? In the United States, it comes down to one sentence. A recession is a significant decline in economic activity spread across the economy that lasts more than a few months. Read that again because every word is load-bearing. Significant, not a blip. Spread across the economy, not just one industry having a rough year, lasting more than a few months, not a single bad week. Those 3 words are the test. The people who date recessions weigh 3 things, call them the 3 Ds. Depth, how far activity falls. Diffusion, how widely the pain spreads. And duration, how long it lasts. And they trade off. A downturn deep and broad enough can qualify even if it's short. That's exactly how a 2-month collapse in 2020 still counted as a recession. And notice that definition never says GDP alone. The people who make the call read a whole dashboard. How many people have jobs, measured 2 different ways? How much income households take in? How much they spend, sales at factories and stores, and how much the country produces. Output is just one gauge among 6. When most of those needles turn down together and stay down, that's a recession. So, who reads that dashboard and makes it official? Not the president, not Congress, not even the government agency that publishes the data. It's a small committee of academic economists at a private, nonprofit research group, the National Bureau of Economic Research. A handful of scholars, currently chaired by the economist Valerie Ramey, quietly keep the official timeline of American booms and busts. And here's the strangest part. They tell you when a recession began only in the rearview mirror, because they wait for solid revised data. Their announcements land anywhere from 4 months to nearly 2 years after the turning point. The recession is usually well underway by the time it's named, and sometimes it's already over. The label arrives late on purpose. Better to be right than fast. So, is there any way to catch one in real time? One rough early warning gauge just watches unemployment. The idea from the economist Claudia Sahm is simple. When the unemployment rate's 3-month average climbs about 0.5 percentage point above its low from the past year, a recession has very likely already begun. It won't be official until the committee says so. But the job market tends to tell the truth early, and that points at what a recession really is. Not a statistic, not a headline. It's people. It's the stretch when hiring freezes and layoffs spread, when paychecks shrink and families pull back, when the shop down the street sees fewer customers walk in. The charts are just the shadow all of that casts. So, where do recessions come from? Not from old age. A long expansion doesn't just get tired and topple over. Economists like to say expansions don't die of old age. Something has to knock them down. A financial system seizing up, an oil shock, a pandemic, or the one we've been circling, The Federal Reserve itself, raising interest rates to break inflation. That's the knot we tied last time. When the Fed lifts rates to cool prices, there are two ways it can end. Slow the economy just enough. Inflation eases, but growth keeps going. And that's the prize. A soft landing. Lean too hard and borrowing freezes, demand collapses, and the economy tips over. A hard landing, a recession. And soft landings are rare. In the early 80s, the Fed drove its rate above 19% to strangle runaway inflation, and the hard landing that followed pushed unemployment to nearly 11%. The cure, it turns out, really can cause the disease. So step back. A recession isn't 2/4 of anything. It's a broad, sustained decline in economic activity, in jobs, incomes, spending, and output, judged after the fact by a small committee reading the dashboard of the real economy. It's a normal, recurring feature of the business cycle, and sometimes it's the price a central bank pays to bring inflation to heel. Which leaves one last question. If the Fed can cause a recession by raising rates, what does it do to end one? It cuts them back down. But what happens when it cuts all the way to zero and the economy still won't budge? That's when central banks reach for stranger tools and begin, in a sense, creating money on a scale that's hard to picture. That's next time on Monetary Mechanics. One note, as always, this channel is here to explain how the system works. It's education, not financial advice. If it made the machine a little clearer, subscribe, and we'll keep taking money apart, one piece at a time.